after 3, so we're going to begin. We have on the agenda 9 items. We're going to continue item number 8 to a future date, and item number 9 to a future date. And we will then start with the simple items. Okay, let's start with number 7.
For item 7, you have a personnel department report before you, and this is relative to employee development and training programs provided by the city during fiscal year 2007-2008.
All right, who's reporting on that?
Linda Lanier, Personnel Department.
Okay, take it away.
All right. Pursuant to the administrative code, the Personnel Department is required to provide a report back to the council and the mayor's office concerning its training activities for the prior fiscal year. So the report that you have before is for the fiscal year of 2007-2008. Overall, the Personnel Department offers a in-house citywide training program whereby we actually conduct the classes ourselves, and we have a catalog of about 25 classes, and from those classes we train for the fiscal year of 07-08 approximately 25,000 city employees, which includes rank and file and supervisors as well, in a number of different areas, being sexual harassment, workplace violence, supervisory, EEO training. We also, reasonable accommodation.
You say with 25,000, what do you do about the other city employees? I think there's 40+ thousand. So what do you do with the rest of them?
Well,
If you're training 25,000, would the rest of them get trained or not trained?
well, as far as departments also, individual departments also offer training programs, and that's also a part of our report where we do go out and we survey departments in terms of what training did you offer within your department as it relates to your employees. And we did go out and we surveyed, and for that time period, 34 departments reported back that there was a multitude of different training courses that were offered. The training courses are conducted both by in-house by departments. They're also sending their employees outside for training depending on what their needs are. And for reporting a total of about, city employees attended about 15,000 different courses, and that could even mean that like one person could have went to a particular course, or a group of individuals could have gone to courses as well. So there is a really huge number of employees that did receive training. My initial number just referred to the training that we conducted in the personnel department.
But you coordinate it citywide to make sure there's some type of training in all departments?
Well, we do work with departments in terms of providing them perhaps some consulting information in terms of they're looking for different types of training classes and they're unable to find outside vendors or outside programs. We do help them to do that. But as far as departments, they are responsible for overseeing their internal training program. So if they call upon our services, we do offer those services.
Okay. And there's certain training that's mandatory for certain employees? For example, the first aid CPR, I understand that's mandatory for certain public safety employees.
Well,
and I'd like to find our compliance rate because I don't think it's in compliance with the law.
okay, as far as the mandate, we do offer the Red Cross CPR training. As far as being mandatory, that course is pretty much geared toward individuals that are on the city's emergency team. Per se, there's no mandate.
There is a mandate by law on public safety personnel. There's a law that certain public safety personnel must have CPR first aid training. I think it's every 3 years.
Okay,
And if they're not getting that, then we're out of compliance with the state standard. And I don't know what other, I know for elected officials there are certain mandatory requirements. And what we should do is verify, like public speaking, customer service essential, change management, et cetera, career development. I mean, a lot of those are optional, but we should identify those that are mandatory under state law and make sure we're in compliance with that. Because I would question if the police department's in compliance with those mandatory CPR first aid classes. I'm sure the fire department would be, since they deal with it more often. But they're like sexual harassment is a requirement under
It
state
is.
law.
It
So
is.
there's certain training that is mandated. We don't identify those that are mandated by law. We have a lot that are optional. The brown bag seminar, which is good, it's informative, educational. But we need to make sure that we're in compliance with the state law when it comes to the specifics. And I don't think there's that many categories, but we need to determine which categories
Or mandatory.
are mandatory and how we're doing in those categories with those specific employee groups.
My name's Alex Vasquez, I'm with Personnel. Our first aid training program that we offer is not meant to satisfy the mandated training that's required of public safety employees. We leave it up to those departments to make sure that their employees are complying with that
And what if they're
requirement.
not?
I mean, I don't, we can ask them, but I don't know that.
Okay, well, I want to report back on the mandatory training, whether it be sexual harassment, first aid, any other mandatory training prescribed by law. And those departments that are required to do that and what our compliance rate is. For example, under the Peace Officer Standard and Training for police officers, there's mandatory training that they have to do every year, a certain number of hours. And if they're not complying with that, they're out of compliance. And something happens and there's litigation and we're not following the law. The programs that are optional, I don't have a problem with assisting the employees on that. But the ones that are mandatory by law, we need to make sure we're in compliance. So we need to have that brought back to this committee, to our next meeting. It may be the police and fire and general services police. I don't know exactly all the ones that are involved, but there's a handful. Phyllis, you probably know that, coming from your military
A
background.
little bit about that. Actually, traditionally, that has not been our role. I understand your concern, and we certainly are on top of the sexual harassment training because that applies to all city employees. But the sworn training, the departments have followed up themselves and ensured that they are in compliance.
Well,
That would be a new role for us. It doesn't mean we can't do it, but it would be a new role.
Well, what I want to do is make sure that those departments that are mandated to do it, we get a report that they are or they aren't. And if they're not, then they need to be put on notice to do it. Because if we're out of compliance with state law, that then holds the city in jeopardy and liability. So I don't know exactly which ones, other than first aid, CPR. There may be more, but we need to find that out. And we simply go to that department and say, you're required, what's your compliance rate? Well, we got a 50% compliance rate. Well, they need to fix it. Because what happens is the city holds the liability, and the council is the one that has to decide on those civil claims. So if an officer or a firefighter that renders first aid and they're not trained, they're not compliant, we can open ourselves up to liability. That's one of the problems. So if we have to have those departments, see, again, I don't know which departments are required by law. We need to figure that out first. And since the personnel department handles personnel for the entire city, we can find that out, and then we can go from there to narrow it down.
I think it'd be a good idea for us to meet with them and determine the best way for you to ensure there's compliance.
But I want it brought back to this committee.
Right.
So we have it on public record that we're in compliance, and if we're not, then we have to fix it. And these other programs are wonderful, and I hope the city employees take advantage of them, because there's a lot of programs there that they can subscribe to and then help for promotions, because you do a lot of programs, a lot of training. But again, when the law mandates a specific training, we have to make sure we're in compliance. So, Mr. Parks, welcome.
Thank you, sir. You know, one thing, and I think your background recalls that I think the post unit and things like that pretty well keep up with those training. Now, the fire department I'm not familiar with, but I know there's a post unit that supposedly keeps track of all of that current training matter, and their records should be up to date because there's a stipend the city gets if they stay in compliance.
I think the first aid CPR is every 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. I
Right.
think there's a 3-year requirement on that.
Councilmember, that's exactly what I was thinking we would do, is to get together with the experts in this area and report back to you as to how we can best ensure that compliance is there.
And then we have to find out what departments under the law are required to do that. Because I'm sure,
Right.
for example, the library department, the zoo, I don't think they're required, but we need to identify those that are. But I do know
the same
We-
thing in the proprietaries of the harbor and the airport probably have similar, almost identical standards as LAPD, and so but I would think they would be managing and monitoring.
I would agree. And we have training coordinators in each city department, so we will gather them together and get that information.
All right, good. Any other questions? Okay. Anything else from ladies? So we're going to hold this for the report back on the questions. Okay, thank you very much. So this will be continued. Our next item will take number 6. So I'm going backwards, so you think we're almost done.
On item 6, you have before you a report from Board of Deferred Compensation, and this is in response to a previous request that you made on the update on the financial condition of the city's deferred compensation plan.
Oh, yes.
This is Stephen Montagna. I work with the Personnel Department. So this report is in response to a request to follow up on a report that we had prepared for you late last year concerning the safety of assets within the deferred compensation plan. In this report, we've outlined some actions that were taken by the board since the last report was written to help to increase the safety of assets within the program. And actually, I'd like to refer you to page 4 of the report. The big or the change that is probably the most will have the largest impact is the FDIC insured option that we currently offer. There was a decision made with that option to expand the number of the managers that would be part of the underlying fund. So right now we have one option and we have one provider. Under the new model, we would actually have 3. That's going to multiply by 3 the amount of FDIC insurance coverage. So that means that participants who put larger amounts into that option would have expanded coverage. In addition,
Benefit to the employees.
yes, definitely. Along with that, the board also took an action to expand the investment options available through the brokerage window to include access to additional banking institutions. So what that means for a participant who wanted to get unlimited FDIC insurance coverage, if they had more than $1 million in the plan and they wanted all of that to be FDIC insured, they now have the means within the plan to be able to accomplish that.
But they have to put it in different accounts.
Yes, they would. But if that's their objective, we can help them get there. So that's a big improvement. And where we're at now, is the other options. Obviously, those are not FDIC insured, but those participants who choose to invest in them, they're given information about the risks. They can make the assessment about whether that risk level is appropriate for them. But for those folks who are on, who are looking for, to get the highest degree of safety possible, we've got the means for them to do that.
So it shows there's 39,496 participants,
Correct.
and there's $2.8 billion in assets.
Well, actually,
What's it down to now?
yeah.
How much less?
The end of November numbers, because those are the most recent I have, are 2.2 billion.
2.2.
Yeah.
What happened to the rest of it? This one guy took off with 50 billion. So we're only
No, that is really all investment loss. We don't have a huge problem in our plan in terms of retaining assets. We do very, very well compared to many other plans in terms of those folks who are in the plan tend not to roll their money out once they become eligible to do so.
You checked mine, I'm okay, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You weren't so good. All right, so we're almost all employees, just a few hundred aren't involved in deferred comp.
Well, no, actually, this number includes
Retirees.
Right. So we have about a 60% plus participation rate.
Of active employees.
Yes. which again is very high for a plan that doesn't have a match.
Why don't we do that?
We would love to have that. You know, it's something that would.
Can we do that, Tom? Why couldn't we do a match instead of?
We have no money to match anything.
We don't?
No.
You're the budget and finance chair. Hey, the federal government can make it up, why can't you?
Yeah, we don't have a printing press.
We'll have to requisition a printing press. But that would be an option when it comes to contract time and everybody complains they're not getting a pay raise. We could like, you know, do something on this, what do you think? Z, you'd like that, wouldn't you?
Anything that does not contribute to the base is preferable to things that.
All right, Tom, don't be so stingy. Okay, so the bottom line is, we're not doing too bad compared to the real world.
Right, and
So we haven't lost anything to that guy who took off with the 50 billion, I don't want to mention his name.
oh,
We weren't
No.
involved in anything like that?
no.
He did lay off some money, okay. Councilman Parks, any questions on 6?
No.
So we're going to receive and file or note and file this one? Note and file. And, you know, we'd like to get some updates, because I have a note in here, just so we can keep up to date, because employees sometimes get worried when they read the newspaper and hear about all the failures taking place, because they all have mortgages and cars, et cetera. If we can get a report back, and until the economy kind of get balanced out and we start seeing some semblance of reasonableness, if we can get a report back in, say, 3 months, monitor it and see where we are,
Sure.
and then hopefully it starts evening out.
Let's hope
New
so.
administration will make it all happen. Print more money.
That's right.
Let me just ask one question.
Mhm.
How do the members get notified, particularly with this new feature that's coming online in July 2009?
We will definitely make them aware, probably in two ways. One would be through the quarterly newsletters that go to the participants, and then we probably would do a special communication that would be just to those participants who currently have assets within the FDIC insured option, to let them know how the option will be changing once the change is implemented.
And you can go up now. Deferred comp has been increased as of January 1st.
The contribution limits, yes, have gone up again.
Right, so we notified them already on that, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And we had a number of changes. We had about 2,000 plus changes from people, and most for the first payday of January. Most of those were folks taking advantage of the higher contribution limits.
And what is that max?
It depends on the age. So if you are,
Somebody Dennis's age.
that would be 22,000.
It is 22,000, so we can avoid taxes that way for the time being. It's pre-tax.
Yes, yes.
Which is good, lowers our income. One more question I have. This $2.2 billion, the city can't use that to bail out the budget, can they? Or the state come in and take it away, sweep it away? Because we always hear about all these sweeps that are taking place.
Yeah, no, the law changed back in the 90s to put Section 457 assets into trust. So
No one can grab it.
employers cannot do anything with that money anymore.
Keep that in mind, Tom.
It's the one proposal I haven't made.
So you're not gonna make that one. Okay, that's good. And then 3 months, we get back and see where we are on this whole economy. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Let's go to 5.
On item 5, you have a report from the city administrative officer, and this is relative to a hiring hall agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers. And this is to employ building operating engineers on a temporary as-needed basis.
Hello?
Hi, Susan Harbach with CAO staff.
Dan Yoshimura for the Department of General Services.
And this is, as indicated, a new agreement with Operating Engineers Local 501 in order for the city to employ building operating engineers on a temporary basis. This is something that will provide additional flexibility to the department for workload increases, also to provide the ability to hire staff while waiting for the civil service process to go through and hire full-time staff. This is something that Local 501 is in agreement with. Unfortunately, they could not be here today. I think they had contacted Mr. Perry.
They're supporting it? Okay, I know we've got a hiring situation taking place. This doesn't violate any of those procedures that have been put into place. This is separate from all the other restrictions we have.
This does not impact what we will be doing with the modified hiring freeze now.
Okay. So as they need them, they come forward, and then when they don't need them, they return back to the pool. So there's no opposition from anyone?
No.
Bernard?
No.
Okay, that's easy to win.
All right,
We'll
thank you.
Thank
send
you.
that forward, thank you.
Excuse me, I have a speaker's card in for that item.
You do. Arthur Hanson. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that there.
Don't worry about it. Everybody makes mistakes. That's the reason why
You
we're all
got
here.
I got the other one on top, general comments, which you take at the end, that's what happened. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
I'm a 32-year employee of City of LA, and about 20 of that's been general services and building maintenance. I agree with the fact that we need to get the people in. However, the problem is in having them brought this way, it's been either a failure or inaction by personnel management and so on and so forth of getting the two-tiered. We have the regular unlimited steam license engineer and then the BOMA engineer, which we can use more on the newer buildings that don't have boilers. Now, I've talked to Daniel Shimura, I've talked to the Mark Fink, who was a former union representative who's no longer working for the union, and they both would like to see something done on it, but I think the holdup may be at personnel. I'm not sure. Somebody should see what personnel can do about, and the city and the union, to get these people in on a regular basis, because the problem is with hiring all people, you train them, and then you lose them. And it's to the detriment of the city, because the knowledge of how these buildings work, if you open one valve all the way, the thing doesn't work right. That's one of the things you learn. You don't adjust one regulator just right. The mayor doesn't have hot water. It's all these little intricacies of the buildings that, will not cause a catastrophic failure in most part, but quite a few times it will cause, a relative nuisance and a lot of complaints, which, we all want to avoid. We want to have a quality employees who are dedicated, and civil servants, usually want to make sure that they get a chance to get promoted and they do their job well.
Well, it
But
doesn't sound like you're not trained personnel according to what I have.
Well, there's the problem, it's just like an old car or a new car. Particularly, we have old cars, we're in one right now, is to know all the little problems that occur. And that's what ensures the fact that your service on the building is done, in an effective and a prompt manner. You have people from a hiring hall, you spend 1 or 2 years training them, or 6 months training them, he's out the door. We lose the training time, then we got to train another person.
Well, according to this, they have to have a license
Well,
and they're issued, so according to the documents I have, these aren't apprentices, these are people.
no,
with
it's not the questions of qualifications, it's a question that there's intricacies which you don't know about till you've been here for a while.
Right.
That's the problem. And those little things like that are what bites us in the backside, so to speak.
Okay.
And, I would appreciate if the council would try to get personnel, Mr. Yoshimura and the union, to get this resolved so we can have hiring hall people out and regular civil service people in. And the other problem is they do not keep the window open long enough to get to attract adequate people. This is something that's probably there's a low amount of staff, and it takes a while for people to kind of seep in, so to speak. We've left other things open for months, trying to get an adequate labor pool. We need to do that on this one also.
When did you leave city employment?
I haven't. I'm still working here.
Okay. All right.
I know I sound like Sam Sperling, but
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, the department is aware of Mr. Hans's concerns. We have been in discussions with the personnel department, and we continue to work with them. Most of the issues that he's brought up, yes, we all have concerns about that. The hiring hall contract is one of the ways that we're going to deal with it. We are going to continue speaking to the personnel department and the union to resolve some of the other issues. So I understand
You're
what
aware
he's
of
saying.
some of the-
We are aware of them, and we are dealing with them.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
well. Thank you. We remain with the support of that. Let's go to number 4, since we're on water and power.
For item 4, you have a report from the Department of Water and Power relative to an amendment to the 205-210 Memorandum of Understanding. This is for the operating maintenance and service unit to adopt the salary for the position of electric station operator trainee.
Good afternoon, Michelle Nagan from Water and Power. This is our request to amend the MOU for the Maintenance and Service Unit Memorandum of Understanding by applying what is commonly known as the Peterson Formula to a craft class of electric station operator trainee. This item went through EERC in August of '08, and we are preparing the transmittal and requesting your support.
The city side?
Hi, Maria Aspen from the CAO's office. I just wanted to reiterate that this did go to ERC back in August and was approved. We believe that this will address a recruitment and retention problem for this particular classification, and we support the department on this.
Okay. Parks. All right, that matter will then go forward.
Thank you.
Number 3, water and power again.
On item 3, this is an amendment to the technical representation and the supervisory technical and business administration units, 205-210 Memorandum of Understanding, and the retroactive salaries.
Hi, Peter Lakatos, Department of Water and Power. The proposal before you would establish a new classification of utility services specialist and senior in that series to take the place of an old utility marketing representative and senior utility marketing representative. It would professionalize the class, it would consolidate a number of pay levels, and it would provide for retroactive salary increases to mirror those that we found through salary survey to be prevalent in the private sector. This does have a history. In fact, it has an exceptional history that I can go into if you want to discuss that, because this began in 1996.
Is it going to apply to 213 former and current employees?
That's correct.
What are we doing with the former employees?
Many of the former employees have, because the salary would be retroactive to January of 2000 and COLA's coming forward, many of those employees have either retired or moved on. To the extent that they were in one of the affected positions, or DDRs as we call them, they would be entitled to some portion of that increase.
Why would we go back 8 years on?
Excellent
That
question.
doesn't make any sense.
I failed to mention that this has been to EERC 3 times. It does have quite a history. This has survived engineers and architects in the Department of Water and Power. It was negotiated for a period of about 5 years across 3 MOUs before EAA was decertified, which took us through the first 5 years. There were 2 bargaining units, technical and supervisory technical, involved. In 2003, one of those ratified their MOU, the other did not. EAA was subsequently decertified. IBEW came in and won representation of the 5 units, and the negotiations ensued beyond that point. We had some language from the last best and final that EERC authorized in 1999. That was 1999, that last best and final. That was with EAA and a prior administration of EAA, I might add.
Maybe 2 prior administrations.
Yes. In any event, the 1999 last best and final was somewhat unworkable in the sense that it contained things like professionalization and consolidation of classes that, after consultation with personnel department, was regarded as being probably imprudent. And once we had to go back and look at detailed issues, we spent some time negotiating to a conclusion with Local 18. The matter came back to EERC in December of 2007 and has since that time been to Personnel Committee and Department of Water and Power Commission for DDR creation and so forth. And here we are again.
Well, the concern I have is how many of these 213 are former? How many, let me say, ask this, how many of the 213 are current employees?
I'm showing 92 are currently budgeted, but now that would be based on the numbers that came over in November, so 92 would be correct.
The rest of those folks retired with a pension, they're living on a pension and doing whatever else they are in life. Now they get a retro check for 8 years.
They would not get the retro check for the 8 years. To the extent that they've retired, they would get a retro check up to the point that they retired.
When they retired. Okay, so if they retired, say 2002, they get a 2-year.
That's correct.
They retired in 2007, they get a 7-year.
That's correct.
Have we ever done that before?
Not in my experience.
Neither. I've been with the city for 40 years. You've been with them for 50 years? I'm the youngster amongst us, sir. Like 45. We haven't deployed those yet. That's a sore subject.
They're gonna go out one day. In a pool.
So I just have a real concern. If we've never done that, how do we do that?
As far as the retroactive,
Yeah.
you know, I don't,
Well, we do it with retroactivity. If you happen to retire
Yeah, you get your-
before the COLA kicks in, then, you know, we'll send you a check for whatever you're due. So we do that on a regular basis.
because if you're there during the time that it was earned,
Exactly.
you have a right.
But it's normally not 8 years late.
Well, I mean,
Generally, no.
But I think on some, this is the issue I'm thinking about. This union has had a history of settling their contracts when the same month they were expiring. So they've been 2 to 3 years behind the curve many times. So anyone that was waiting for that 3-year cycle, they may have gone, whatever. So they do get their retro no matter where they are.
Yes.
The other aspect of the retroactivity in the period of time, had this proceeded under what we would think of as normal processing, had there not been a decertification, a number of other things beyond our control, in all likelihood, this would have been concluded in 2000. At that time, the department modified the last best and final and offered EAA retro only to 2000. It was previously argued to be between 96 and 98. Had we allowed that, we would have gotten into the SRP and all the people who separated. We pulled it forward to 2000. We had a nice tidy 2-year retro package, and then things happened.
I remember that there was that issue that seemed to drag it. It's hard to believe it's been 8 years though. All right, so what do you want to do?
I think we moved it. The ERC's already seen this.
Yes, the ERC has seen it several times, and most recently, they
Countless.
approved this back in December of 2007.
Was that before we were in recession?
Yes, sir. Officially, yeah.
Officially, yeah. Well, they reported that a year late, but, so the dollars we're talking about are coming out of the DWP fund?
Yes, sir.
They have sufficient dollars in there?
I sure hope so. They tell me they do.
All right. Well, the Budget and Finance Chair supports it, so I can't go against that. The senior member of the council, so we'll move that forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's on.
That was number 3. So we only have 2 left. We'll take the easy one first.
So it'll be number 2.
Yes.
Item 2 is the Personnel Department report relative to police officer recruitment and selection activities for the period July through September 2008. And Public Safety Committee has recommended to note and file the report.
Gentlemen?
Good afternoon, John Dunlap with the Personnel Department.
Joe Mariani, Los Angeles Police Department Recruitment and Employment Division.
Captain of Police.
So before you, you have the quarterly report on police officer recruitment and selection activities for the first quarter of the fiscal year. But Personnel Department and Police Department have continued our collaborative efforts and have been able to achieve our goals. For example, in December, we tested 870, the goal was 700, hired 490 fiscal year to date. And just on January 5th, we had 60 appear at the academy, so.
So why this sudden surge in interest in LAPD?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Could it be the Great Deferred Program?
I think that's what it is.
Could it be the fact that the economy's in the tank? So when are we gonna run out of money? Because traditionally, when we have the money, we don't have the bodies. When we have the bodies, we don't have the money. It always seems to make that cross.
Well, last year in December, we tested less than half that number. So,
So it's definitely increased.
yeah.
400.
These people want to be police officers, or they're looking for a job, and then as soon as the market clears up, they're going to bail and go back to the private sector.
I think we're seeing a variety of candidates. Obviously, you know, the economy definitely has to have an impact, but I still think that there's a lot of people interested in this job, a lot of young people, especially the fact that we target, you know, specific age groups, and we're getting still the median age is still in their mid-20s. Yeah, we see an occasional, you know, older person who's making a career change, but we're still getting.
How old would that be? Do we have an age limit? Is that back in or out?
No.
There's no age limit?
No.
So you could be like mid-60s and join?
About the,
We tried that, it didn't work too well.
about the oldest candidate that I hired last year that I can recall was 52 years old.
52?
Is military, coming out of the military?
Actually, prior municipal service back east.
So that means he'll retire at 72.
Or get 10 years. Yeah. Mhm.
Is it? I'm approaching that.
I like that.
He's got to do the whole 20 though, right?
Can they retire after 10?
I believe you can still get vested after 10, is my
Yeah,
understanding.
I think you vest after 10,
But you,
depending on the age.
yeah, unless you have the age.
The age of 70, I thought.
60, 55 or 60.
I thought when they made the last changes on the pension that the 10-year pension went out. That everything was a 20-year.
I could be mistaken, but my recollection still is that you have to have 10 years to be vested,
To be
but you
vested,
have to be able to reach retirement age to collect that pension.
So,
But I'll look.
Yeah, because I know that age things come back and forth.
Mhm.
We had it, we didn't have it, we had it, we didn't have it. But most of the folks are young, in their 20s.
Yeah, mid-20s to late 20s.
How old were you when you came on?
22.
Okay, so it looks like the numbers are going good. I just hope that we continue with the funding, because that may be a factor, correct?
It's a major factor. It's, you know, I think we just got notified that yesterday that our pension contribution is going to be somewhere north of $500 million for next year's actuarial study. And we're hovering between 450 to 500 million shortfall for next year. So tough decision is going to be, do you take 450 million out of 1-point-something billion dollars, which is 30% of the city, or do you take it out of the 70%, which is police and fire? That's going to be the major decision. So if you figure the 70% that we have now, if you cut 400 and some odd million dollars out of the budget, that 70% goes up to 80 plus. So you'd have a city budget of 80+% police, fire, and 20% other stuff.
Not a rosy picture.
Just thought I would make a.
You are the chair of
Smile
Budget and
on your
Finance, which is good to start on this committee, and then that also, because you can see it from both perspectives. Okay, we get a report on this how often?
quarterly.
Okay. And as long as the money holds out, we plan to get to our 10,000 number when?
Well, we believe by the end of the year we should pierce 10,000. We've been fluctuating. Yeah.
Fiscal year?
No, end of the calendar year.
Calendar.
Okay, so another 11 months.
It could be sooner, but we're looking more in November, December to pierce 10,000.
Is that
We've
because of the retirements?
Well, we've been fluctuating right around 9,800 and change for the last few months. And given the fact, as I mentioned before, we average, I believe, 12 drop retirements per month. Then we have about a 16% academy attrition, which is another 10 or so, and then the rest are regular retirements. So, and right now we're hiring 60 a month. So, given that, it's been a little bit of a growth here.
And we're maintaining the academy standard and not loosening that for the numbers?
Yes,
Because I know you were concerned about that.
we're always concerned.
Yeah.
How is the relationship working with the background being done by personnel department? Did that all smooth out?
You know, it's a good process. You know, it's like a marriage and a family. You know, there's some differences, but I think the fact that occasionally we differ on things, it's healthy. I recall I was in backgrounds in 2003 and 2004, and one of the recommendations going back to the Christopher Commission was the fact that when it is a shared responsibility, it's a good checks and balance. So it's a good relationship.
But most of those background folks are retired cops anyway.
Yeah, for the most part. Most of them are from state, federal, and municipal agencies, and many of them are former LAPD as well.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So we'll note and file that. Thank you very much. Thank you. And our final item of the day, number 1.
On item 1, you have a communication from the mayor as well as the city administrative officer report, and this is relative to notification of application and authority to accept the 208 congressionally mandated award from the U.S. Department of Justice for the Hollenbeck Community Law Enforcement and Recovery Program. The Public Safety Committee as well as Ad Hoc Committee on Gang Violence have recommended approval of the CEO recommendations.
Okay, 447. Take it away.
Good afternoon, Melissa Fleming with the CAO. As stated, the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Public Safety is requesting authority to accept a grant award of approximately $450,000. The grant is for a 2-year program period effective July 1, 2008 through June 30th, 2010, and will be used to support the fiscal year 0809 operation of the community law enforcement and recovery sites in 2 gang reduction youth development zones, both in the Hollenbeck area. Grant funds partially support the Deputy City Attorney 3 assigned to the Ramona Garden site and will fully support the salary of the Deputy City Attorney 3 assigned to the Boyle Heights site. Resolution authority is requested specifically for the Deputy City Attorney assigned to the Boyle Heights site.
They're asking for 1 position?
That's correct.
And that'll be paid for totally by the grant?
That's correct. The direct salary costs will be paid for totally by the grant. A portion of the fringe benefits are also paid for by the grant, and the balance of the fringe benefits would be a general fund obligation. But as this is a continuing position, those would have been, calculated into the budget this particular fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Mr. Parks?
You see, there's no front money on this from or matching funds from the city?
That's correct. There's no match requirement. This is this particular grant's an earmark award. There's no matching funds required.
Would you just get reimbursed?
That's correct.
Is that going to happen before June the 30th? What do we do, quarterly reports?
Julie Crane from the Mayor's Office. We are entering into a contract with the county for the period of July 1st, 2008 through June 2009. So the money that's spent for that portion of the CLEAR program will be on a reimbursement basis. For the city attorney position, we will be able to draw down the money from the federal government and reimburse the city attorney based on the work that they do in the CLEAR zone.
I mean, but is that going to happen before the 30th?
Yes.
I mean, so we will be fully reimbursed by June 30th?
We will be fully reimbursed probably between 30 and 90 days after June 30th once we receive the invoices for work done by the city attorney.
This started July 1st, 2008.
Yes.
So it's been in place since 2008, July 1st?
Correct.
And we haven't received any money yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so this will be
because that's what I'm wondering, who's going to be responsible for ensuring the invoices get in?
Our office will be.
So if we've started in the first part of the fiscal year, we assume that at least half the money or at least half the services have been forthcoming since the grant went into play. So are we in the starting blocks for submitting invoices as this gets approved?
Yes.
Okay. What does the city attorney's office say about this?
Peter Shutan, Deputy City Attorney. We would encourage council to accept the money. We will have and have had attorneys, prosecutors assigned to both the CLEAR sites, both the Boyle Heights site and the Ramona Garden site. and we will continue to staff those sites.
You know, I get confused because this stuff runs back and forth. I believe at Budget and Finance, there was a similar grant where we were talking about CLEAR yesterday, and one of the recommendations was to see about a request have public defenders added to CLEAR. Is that something that may be a reality, or?
Well, that was the first formal request I'd heard about that. I think it was Councilman Cardenas who had raised that at a prior ad hoc meeting. And I'm not sure I understand the basis. I don't know the background on that request, so I'm not comfortable responding to it. I just don't know.
So we prosecute them and we defend them with the taxpayers' funds?
Well, we've always prosecuted and defended on taxpayer funds, but
Not with the
this
city
is
funds.
not with city funds, no. And I don't know, I don't know the context in which that recommendation or that inquiry was made, so I'd prefer to see the exact inquiry in order to respond to it.
It was an interesting little direction came out of, I guess, ad hoc game committee.
Yeah, I think, well, it came out of budget yesterday, but the initial inquiry came out ad hoc, yeah.
What did they do in budget?
We passed it yesterday, but it was just a note about the request to see about a public defender being added to CLEAR sites, which was kind of unique.
Sorry, I apologize. I believe that specific request came out because the Public Defender's Office was at Ad Hoc Gang and made a public comment requesting to be more involved in the CLEAR program. So after that, Councilman Cardenas requested the Mayor's Office work with the Public Defender's Office to see if there might be a way they can have a more formal role in the CLEAR program itself. So I believe the Mayor's Office is working on that particular report back.
Would that be funded by the city or funded by some other source?
I think those are some of the decisions that would need to be worked out in that discussion.
Yeah, as the CLEAR program is more the suppression piece of an overall gang plan for the city, there may very well be a place for the public defender. I'm not sure that it's in the CLEAR.
I'm just
part of the
concerned about
CLEAR thing.
who's going to pay for it.
Right. No, I understand.
As the funding's obviously drying up. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, we'll pass that through. Thank you. Mr. Hanson, public comment, 2 minutes on the clock.
Yes, I represented DWP employee who got 20 days off, and the hearing examiner decided that he didn't need the 20 days off and gave him his time back. And what I would propose is whenever there's a suspension less than 6 months, which is the maximum, to have the hearing to determine the legality or the proper, whether it's proper before the person is actually suspended, because that will save the city money, because they won't be having people off and then get their time back. It's not to the benefit of the city to put the cart before the horse. And I think that's held over from the feudal times when the lord of the manor punished somebody, then decided whether it was proper later. I would propose that that would be done in order to save the city money. Because, you lose the person's services for 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, whatever number of days, then you got to pay them for it. It's not too good. Another issue is since 2002 in November, I've been made a complaint about working out of class, and personnel department never done anything about it.
You file a grievance?
I filed a grievance. The union won't take it to arbitration because the provisions of the union contract are illegal, in my opinion. They don't comply with the city administrative code. The union won't take it, even though it wouldn't cost them a dime.
That's a representative body, sir, and if they don't want to take it up.
I know. Well, I'm just saying that's.
We don't hear administrative.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but the problem's there and the liability is there on the part of the city, because if I'm not working within class,
That goes to
somebody's
Civil
going to pay.
Service Commission.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Anyway, have a good day, and
Thank you.
for being conscientious.
You're welcome. For almost o'clock, so we're done.
4:02 according to the laptop.
Pardon me?
4:02.
Well, on that clock.